going to share my screen, kind of kick us off here. Welcome to the Faith Climate Action Week webinar. A lot of things been going on this week. We've got 5 panelists today to talk about food insecurity and hunger in the Nashville area. I've met or spoken to almost all of them as we've been kind of organizing this webinar. Really appreciate them being available, making time out of their busy schedules, especially this time of year, which is such a busy time anyway. Let's talk about this issue of food insecurity and hunger in the Middle Tennessee region. I'm going to forward this just to kind of let you know that the Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light has had several different events scheduled for this week. It's called Faith Climate Action Week. The theme of the week for us and for nationally, for the Interfaith Power and Light nationally, is Common Ground, Cultivating Connections Between Food, Faith, and Climate. We already had a couple of events this past weekend on Saturday. Today's webinar that you're attending right now. And then 2 more events scheduled for later this week. One is Thursday evening at the Temple on Harding Place, or Harding Pike, I think. Screening of the movie Common Ground, which will be really good, really interesting movie. And then on Friday evening at Clarksville, Tennessee, at Austin Peay State University, there will be an Earth Care Vigil at the Victory Gardens at APSU, if you're interested in doing that. So I'm going to go back and see if I can get out of here. There we go. Sharing. We've got a really good panel here, 5 individuals. What I'm going to ask everybody to do is, for questions, things like that, is to hold off till the end of the presentations. I want to make sure each of our panelists get adequate time to talk about their programs and their history, what they've been doing, why they do it, how it relates to this issue of food insecurity and hunger. And then after that, we'll have an opportunity for questions and comments and so forth for that. So first thing I want to do is I want to ask Paul Slintz to start us off with a little prayer, just to kind of get us going here, and then we'll start with our panelists. Paul?
All right. Well, this is a prayer from Pope Francis, who is, of course, a great champion for care for the earth and care for the poor both. And I thought a prayer from him would be appropriate. I've changed 1 or 2 words, but I don't think he would care, just for smoothness of this. So let us pray. Creator God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes, bringing healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey toward your infinite light. This we pray in the name of all that is holy. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that. So we have 5 panelists. We've got about an hour, maybe a little over an hour to do this. There's no real shortage, and we'll see where this conversation takes us. I'm really excited about it. 5 different organizations in the Nashville area. Joey Langford from Cultivate. Let him kick us off. Melissa Thomas is from the branch of Nashville. CJ Santel, I got to meet CJ last week, running the Nashville Food Project. Heather Hefner who runs the Loaves and Fishes program for Catholic Charities, the Diocese of Nashville. I've worked with Heather, volunteered, helped her out on a few occasions over there at the Holy Name. And lastly, but certainly not least, is Kim Molnar, who runs the second Chief Operating Officer for the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee. And, and Joey, I'm going to let you kind of kick us off here, but I just want to say at the beginning is I think y'all probably know each other. As I've been kind of learning more about food insecurity in Nashville and addressing this issue, seems like there's an ecosystem of folks that work together on this issue. That's been really exciting to learn. So Joey, why don't you kind of kick us off and tell us about yourself, Cultivate. Really excited about that program over there at Ellington Ag Center, and just kind of kick us off those. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Can everybody hear me? Am I live?
Yep.
All right. Well, I do enjoy seeing faces connected to the ministries that we serve alongside of here in the Nashville area. I haven't met CJ or Heather. I think Kim and I know Melissa and I have met quite a few times, but it's good to be on this with everybody. 10 years. In 2010, the Lord called me from healthcare with my family to move to the tip of the continent of Africa, where we served the next 5 years. Building a food platform in a ministry called Living Hope. It was one of President George W. Bush's USAID organizations that was meeting food insecurity in the townships around Cape Town. I got into it by simply buying a couple of greenhouses, and a Zimbabwean farmer, a 63-year-old Zimbabwean farmer, taught me how to farm over the next 5 years. We built a 13 greenhouse growing operation outside of a township called Masapumalele. And it was a training and development program as an entryway for people that were trying to secure jobs in businesses in and around Cape Town. And we did that by providing Crown-owned tomatoes under a market contract with the social equivalent like a Whole Food to pay a living wage to the individuals from the township for the program. That program is still running. It's run by a graduate student of mine, a Zimbabwean fellow named Samuel. He's actually doing better with it than I did, so we're celebrating that. And when I was called back to the States in 2015 with my family, we really felt the Lord call us to stay in food because of the growing need of food, not only in our nation, but actually in our hometown. I'm from Middle Tennessee, born and raised in Dixon. And so I just realized that we had a growing food inequity and a food security problem that everybody in administrations and around the mid-state area, especially where I'm from, we're talking about. That led me to reach out to our then Governor Haslam, and I simply just asked the state for land. When you want to grow food, you have to have a little piece of dirt, and I thought that was probably going to be the biggest impediment to me getting into this, but his Commissioner of Ag blessed us with 8 acres of land. It's at Ellington Ag Center. For those of you that haven't been, come see the farm sometime. If you're a taxpayer, that farm belongs to you as much as it does to me. So we took that 8 acres and we turned it into a production site with teaching and training arrangements with UT Extension for professional development, ag training, forestry training, and other streams of training that we have since added. And those that we train, we come through an intake and application process in February, March, and April. We onboard 15 people from partner organizations. Those people are coming out of usually they're post-incarceration or they're struggling with an addiction. We are a men's and women's work organization now. Those individuals start at $18 an hour and they work 40 hours a week. They do that through the summer, helping us harvest food from 4 farms now. Those farms are using underutilized land, primarily around big churches in Nashville. Okay, so a lot of these places and a lot of my talks now are aimed at challenging denominations to think about the way they steward their land. Rather than pay to have it mowed, maybe invite communities onto it to grow food for the betterment of their community. Haven't met a church pastor yet that didn't want to engage me further in that conversation because they pay quite a bit of money every year as a budgetary line item to mow 16 acres at the back of the field that nobody ever sees. So we engage those conversations and have been able to secure some more land, and that's the growth approach to what we're doing. we graduate cultivators, we call them, onto these farms after they complete a 1-year training course with us to be mid-level managers of those farms. So we're growing from within. I'm not going to Indeed.com to hire people from without. We believe that that's the best way to continue to maintain culture within the organization. Those that believe in the system and what we're doing can go out and represent us best. The model for our food is for every pound we sell, we give a pound away of equal value and weight. So we're growing food and we're engaging the local upper income markets with selection of fresh, quality, unrefrigerated food to plate on their plates at dinners and all the Opryland Hotel, 22 restaurants in there, and some other restaurants as they buy food under their sustainability initiative, which they have been mandated in their corporate mandate to get their food by 2027 for all the restaurants within 150 miles of their facilities. We become a big advocate partner of that, as well as getting some of the bugs worked out with Fresh Point, Robert Orr Cisco, those places, of how the distribution of that fresh produce is going to work, keeping us on the farm and keeping us out of vans driving to and from all over for these sales and to get this into the market. The other food, 50% by weight, goes into food boxes and half bushel boxes. It's a variety of what we call 70-30 models. So it's 70% of various I call sustenance food, like it's potatoes, it's the heavy things that do not require refrigeration, but also are very easy to use for the demographics that we're serving. But then we try to create 30% of nutritional diversity in those boxes as we get other items that may not be so recognized by the people that get them, but also create some education through some recipe cards and stuff like that we send out with them. So we're engaging also in education, I think, that way, as well as training of the cultivators that are coming through our 1-year program. People ask me, what do you do with the people in your program in the winter? Because you can't grow a lot of food here. We have greenhouses that are in operation that run year round. And we also have what I call butts in seats time, where every Tuesday and Thursday, those individuals are sitting under the direction of UT Extension and other professors at a collegiate level to teach them various aspects of farming at a deeper level. They also use their Fridays to go out and put community gardens. We sponsor, we have an application process online where churches, youth groups, even schools locally can apply for a $2,500 grant, and we will sponsor them and have a graduate cultivator in the continued education of how they give back to their community and become givers and not takers. They go out and instruct these organizations and put their food plan and their boxes, above ground raised beds or whatever, together so that they can become participants in growing food locally right around their congregation. So those are the main tenets of sort of what we do. And I know you if you're in this area, you're probably familiar at some level with the food moving around from Cultivate. This year, we will do 500,000 pounds of fresh food. We will be distributing to the local economy. And by 2027, our growth plan is to be at 1 million pounds of fresh food from farms to tables here locally in Nashville. I think that's, I didn't keep a time, Greg. So I know I talked really fast. You said 5 to 8 minutes. I tried to get it in 5 minutes. So
I think you did, Joey. Very good.
all right.
All the other panelists are going to have a high bar to cover there. Thank you.
I'm passionate about it. So I've been in it 13 years, both across internationally, learning and really cutting my teeth on it, seeing the poorest of the poor and the food inequality internationally, and then also being right back in my hometown and being heartbroken for the way that the faith has been really disengaged in this issue by and large. I do believe that local, to speak to the environmental impact and climate impact of it, I think as I talked to the governor even more recently about food anxiety being one of the markers that he has for food insecurity, I asked him who doesn't have food anxiety after COVID, seeing that we couldn't get some of the stuff that we needed even in the homes and where I live, work, and play as well. And so bringing it to the conversation, localizing more of our food, and food security, I think, is one aspect of cutting down on distribution, the carbon footprint of vegetables, and becoming more in line with the corporate mandates that are coming through big organizations like Marriott that drive the consumers to make local decisions when they're buying their produce.
Yeah, that's great. I agree totally. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Do the next panelist, Joey. That's okay. And then we'll have time for questions as we kind of move along.
That's fine. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Melissa, I had you next on my list out there at the branch of Nashville. I remember going out there, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago to visit your operation. I was just so impressed with what y'all do out there and how you distribute food to those who are in need, and all the other things you do as well. So why don't you take us through that story a little bit?
Thank you, Greg. We're real honored to be able to do the work that God has put us into the place to do. We're so thankful for Joey and Cultivate. Last year, I don't know the poundage, but the amount of food that we got from Cultivate in partnership with Men of Valor, who were cultivating the garden about a mile away from where we are, was incredible. And our population of people absolutely love the fresh vegetables that they get from Cultivate. So we're very thankful for that. The reason we started, we're 11 years old. We came out of having done flood recovery. We were Southeast Nashville flood recovery at that time, and saw this incredible partnership in the community of organizations working together to do this flood recovery. But we also, I think, were in many ways compelled out of the walls of our churches and into our neighborhoods to see who our neighbors were and what they were struggling with. And so when that concluded in 2012, we came together and said, what is it that we need to do next? And we reached out to Second Harvest first. And at the time, we talked with, I just lost the name of who we talked with, but at Second Harvest, we asked them, is there a need for a food pantry? And they said, we absolutely need a good food pantry in Southeast Nashville. So along with their expertise and leadership, we opened up the branch of Nashville. It did not take but a few minutes, honestly, but before we knew that the need was beyond just food. So the food insecurity was significant, and I'll speak in a minute about what other need we saw. We have moved from when we were serving 40 families a week at that time. Never have we advertised in our community. But we have moved to a point where we're feeding 1,200 families a month. And so that accounts for between 4,000 and 5,000 individuals who are needing food. And our people come to us by food appointment, by appointment online. And just to show the need and how the demand is increasing, those appointments stay booked out 2 weeks at a time. And I meet people out in public often who say, I've been trying to get an appointment for months. So it's we're at capacity, and are also having to have added a component to our food support that is an emergency food box that it will last a family maybe 2 or 3 days. And that is for the purpose of those who drive up and say, I really need food, but I can't get an appointment, and we don't want to turn them away without some support. So that has, the need for that has increased by 200% since the end of 2023. And so we're doing 15 emergency food boxes a day. At least that's what our system can handle at this moment. All of this increased demand over the course of 11 years has pushed us to take a little bit different focus. We will not stop doing food assistance for families in our community. But we also want to address the things that are upstream that are causing a family to be in need of food. And so our shift has turned a bit it's turned significantly so that we can address the need to help people get out of poverty. That's the goal thing to do. And we don't have all the answers in how to do it, but we welcome anybody who wants to jump in and help us figure that out. But we're doing a lot of things. 27% of our neighbors in our community speak a language other than English. So the thing that we saw immediately after we opened the food pantry was the need for English language acquisition. And so we started in teaching students, adult learners. We currently have 250 adult learners with a waiting list of 146. So that is a significant concern for us in our area and one of our focus, because we know that when a person, as they increase their language acquisition, they increase their earning power. So that's very important to us. Now, the challenges that we are experiencing at this time are probably the challenges any nonprofit's experiencing, but I'll just tell you that it feels more palpable this year than it has at any point. Our staff is stretched very thin. As we are serving, you know, I'd say 1,500 families a month who are coming to us, and then other families who are coming to us to receive what we call comprehensive care. That is our program of coming around a family and trying to move them into connection with other organizations that are doing things that fill the gaps that we cannot provide. We work significantly with older adults. We teach English language learning, and we provide emergency food support. But there's 1,000 other things that people need and other organizations who are doing those things. So we will refer them to those organizations in every opportunity that we have, and we're building very strong partnerships with nonprofits in our city to do such. So, of course, our challenges lie in this need for staff, and then funding, you know, is always a need in a nonprofit, and we have to have that in order to hire additional people and even get to the place where we can do the work of helping a family move towards thriving. As far as the faith communities, we rely heavily on the support of faith communities and the engagement of faith communities, because we want very much for the people that come on our property to feel valued, loved, and seen. We want to express who God is to those people that come to our space. And we hear often I was talking to a volunteer last night that I hadn't spent a lot of time with, who said, I sense something here, I feel something here I haven't felt anywhere else. And so what we rely on people who are in the faith communities to help us pull that off, to be those who are with arms outstretched, welcoming and loving, and letting people know that we love you and we see what you're going through, and we want to help you. And so we have many ways that can be accomplished. Of course, the typical food pantry kinds of opportunities are always available. But in addition to that, we have other ways that you can come alongside a family who needs help walking towards the supports and the resources that they need over time that need to be, you know, for example, Covenant Church is on one of our Afghan families, and they are helping them figure out how to get to the things that they need that they don't know where they are, or they don't know the best way to access them. And that's a significant engagement experience for those young adults who are doing that, is very important. So that is those are a couple of the ways that the faith community can get engaged. And another way that's very simple, if a person is so inclined, is that we'd love to have someone that is standing outside our building as cars are driving up to pray with people as they desire. We ask, would you like someone to pray with you? And about 85% of those that we see want someone to pray with them, including people of other faiths. And so we believe that, and okay, let me say this as a person of faith, as someone whose husband is on the staff of a church, we're very guilty of being inside our walls. I will speak for Melissa. For many years of my life, guilty of being inside my walls and not knowing what was outside of me in the community of Southeast Nashville. Well, God used a thing, and it wasn't something any of us wanted, but there was a flood, and God takes even the bad things and he does beautiful out of them. And it caused us to be thrust out into the community and see what the needs are. That's what churches, what we want to encourage more of amongst our churches and faith community, is get out of the walls. We'll help you get engaged with someone, and it'll change your life. I'm done, Greg.
Thank you, Melissa, so much. We've talked about the very thing at my church at St. Stephen's about trying to get outside of our walls and being in the community more. We're doing some of that. We've got some folks on the webinar today that are leading that effort as well. I'm going to reshuffle a little bit here because I know that Kim has indicated that she's got a hard stop at 1, so I want to go ahead and give her a chance to talk to the group, and then we'll go to CJ after that, and Heather, I'm gonna have you bring up the important work you do. So Kim, are you ready to?
I am. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having us here, Second Harvest Food Bank, here on this call. I appreciate the work you all do. It's important work, and I'm glad you've taken this interest in food insecurity for this week, and then beyond, of course. So Second Harvest Food Bank, for those of you who don't know, we are one of 200 food banks that are in the Feeding America network. Feeding America is the largest domestic relief organization in the country. We are the largest domestic relief organization in Tennessee. Of what we serve in Tennessee, we have 46 counties. So we go north to south and to the state borders. And as well, we go as far west as White County, Putnam, Overton, and then that was east, and then west to, my husband's on here, he knows I'm east-west dyslexic. So, and then east to, that was east, west to Gibson County. So we cover a large swatch of Middle Tennessee. Within that swatch, we have over 600 feeding programs. We work through partner agencies, valued partner agencies like Melissa at the branch. Actually everyone on here, Shy of Cultivate, who goes the other way. But CJ and Heather, Catholic Charities, we work through partner agencies. So we collect the food that would go to waste or purchase food that our agencies need to fill in blanks. And then our agencies are able to source that through us. Partner agencies, we run our own programming. We also are looking at the future. There's been a lot spoken here about culturally relevant types of foods and getting down to the source of hunger and what source of poverty. And so we're in that work as well. One of the things that we've learned along the years since we've been in business since 1978, we started as emergency feeding. And people came to us because they lost a job or their car broke down or medical bills. A temporary situation caused them to not be able to get access to food. And so we were emergency food. We are no longer emergency food. We are in the budget of families. All of us, we are in that budget. So they plan to go to their local food pantry or they plan to go to the local feeding, on-site feeding program. That is part of their plan to stretch their dollars to get through the rest of the month. So we've come to realize that if we are part of the budget, not emergency, but truly part of their lives, then we have to be part of their solution as well. We can't just throw calories at them. We can't just throw whatever we found donated at them. We have to nourish their bodies. So health and nutrition has become a huge focus of what we do. A huge pinpoint. Produce sourcing, perishable, fresh dairy, and eggs is a huge source of sourcing for us. Last year, our goal is to get to a point where we're distributing 50% of our distribution that will go to our partner agencies and to our programs will be fresh produce and desirable perishable product like milk and eggs. We are currently sitting at 37%, so we have a ways to go. But last year, I know it's a percentage, to put it in real numbers, last year it was 13 million pounds, almost 14 million pounds of produce and perishables that was distributed in 46 counties through us. So we're deliberately sourcing produce, we're deliberately sourcing milk and eggs. We're working with funding sources to get access to produce. And because that's the food that people want and that's the food that people need to improve their lives. We do mobile pantries on the weekends, and we had one. We do, 250 a year. We had one this past weekend in off of Bell Road here in Nashville, and I had the opportunity to volunteer at it. was primarily Hispanic population that was served, but primarily Hispanic and immigrant. So we start it was choice. So they get to choose what they want and they can turn down what they don't want. So it was not just a box in the car, but they could park and pick what they want and what their families will eat. So as we escort them through and they're able to choose, a lot of them turned down the canned goods. A lot of them just flat turned it down. They didn't want the beef stew. They didn't want the canned mixed vegetables, which was great. If we had just handed it to them, then we would have created food waste, which I'm sure none of you would want. We don't want. So, but as we turned that corner after that first little stretch, it turned to produce. And there was fresh herbs, basil and thyme and oregano. There was the big, huge spinach. There was onions and potatoes and tomatoes and garlic. And the smiles just grew exponentially as we walked them through. And the tears started flowing both on their faces and our faces, because the pure joy of getting the food they recognize, know how to cook, want to cook, it was astounding. So kudos to all of you on this call. I know Melissa is doing that as well. I know that's what CJ does. That's the direction we all need to go. And in that effort, while we all do that and make that turn and switch more heavily to produce, we'll reduce food waste in the landfills, because that's where the food is, right? The food is at the farms. That's where the food is. So we source that food and get it to the people that need it. We give the people that need it the food they want and need, and we reduce food waste at the same time. I don't know how long I talked, Greg, because I can talk forever.
I think all of y'all have said you could talk forever. So,
Yeah.
But you're very concise. Thank you, Kim.
All right, thank you.
And I'm sure we're going to have some questions for the group. So thanks for kind of keeping things moving along here very much. CJ, I got to meet you last week. That was really wonderful. I'm so impressed with your operation there, what y'all were doing, and your map that you had on the wall of all the groups you worked with. It was kind of like, okay, that's pretty cool. So so you want to tell us about the Nashville Food Project and all the great work you're doing there?
Sure, sure. Thank you. And I just want to reiterate, Joey and I are the only ones that haven't met, but we're going to meet soon, Joey. And it's just so great to see all of our partners. Like Kim said, we are all partners in this work together, and could not do it without each other. So I just really appreciate everybody on this call and panel. The Food Project is 13 years old. It started as an affiliate of Mobile Loaves and Fishes, which I think Heather's going to talk about, and became its own organization, an independent organization, in 2011. And I was actually meeting with one of the founders of that Loaves and Fishes chapter this morning, and he was telling me some of this history. And it was the switch in organizations was really about a new kind of model that Toulouse and that group, Toulouse Schuyler Quinn, was the founder of the Food Project. And that model works in a partnership-based way. So we began by handing food directly to the unhoused community primarily. And between that and the 2010 floods that really showed the organization what it could do at scale, they switched the model to really focus on partnership. So you can think about the Food Project as a B2B organization. We work with other organizations, other poverty disrupting, community building organizations, and we enhance their programming with food. So that's really the model that we do. As Kim alluded to, we are recovering food from across the city 5 days a week. So last year we recovered almost 300,000 pounds of food from grocery stores. We bring that back to we have 2 commercial kitchens in the nation, one at our headquarters, one at the St. Luke's Community House. And we make that food into ready to eat. It's hot, but it's also cold meals. Food that we're serving right now with 52 organizational partners at 70 sites. So like the YMCA is one partner, but we do like 7 YMCA sites. So we deliver nutritionally dense, made from scratch meals to our partners and enhance their programming with food. So we're doing between 6,000 and 7,000 meals a week out of 2 commercial kitchens. We could not do this without our volunteers. So volunteers help us go through the food, they help us cook the food, and we're reintroducing our volunteer driving routes as well. So they'll soon be helping deliver the food as well. So that's our community meals program. That's what most people know us by. Our mission statement is that we bring people together to grow, cook, and share nourishing food, right? So you can think about our work in the grow, cook, and share. The cook is what I just said, is our community meals program. Our garden programs, we operate 3, soon to be 4 community gardens across town, including the community farm at Mill Ridge, which is an 8-acre parcel on Metro's newest Metro Park, public park, Mill Ridge. And we've got over 100 farm gardeners out there that have individual growing plots. There's 14 languages that are spoken at the community farm. So it's a very cosmopolitan place. We are hoping to create more land for people like Joey's program that are interested in scaling up. So if you needed half an acre or an acre, that's kind of the vision, is to get space for people who want to step up a notch from, a community garden plot, basically, which is for your household typically. Though I will tell you, there are clearly some gardeners out there that are making Tabasco sauce, right? They're only growing peppers. How many peppers do you need? We're really kind of thinking about that and thinking about what a community farm is. When they were doing the listening for that park out there, agriculture was the #1 thing that community wanted space for, right? There is a waiting list out there. So it's been really interesting to get in and build out the infrastructure for some of these gardens. And we have another garden at the Community Resource Center at Magruder. And then our market farming program, Growing Together, is at a church, behind a church. This is very similar, on Haywood Lane. And we're working with 7 immigrants and refugees from Burma and Bhutan, and they are growing for market, right? They're growing to sell. And last year on 0.98 acres, they grew 32,000 pounds of produce and generated $120,000 of revenue for their families. We take only a very small part of that, basically because we're the market. We now work with those farmers, and they do not speak English. They were farmers in their own country. They literally brought seeds with them in their pocket. And they plant some things that there are no English words for. There's just a really hot red pepper that if you want to get inducted into the club, come on down, but it does not have an English name. You cannot buy this seed in this country. So it's really unique, culturally appropriate vegetables that they're growing. And we are developing ways to get that food, as Kim said, like fresh produce is the thing that we need to work on and work to expand more in the community. And so we're trying to get the produce that they grow into their community, right? They sell a CSA, the restaurants love it too. And then our share programs are our community engagement, our volunteer programs, our logistics. So we've kind of divide our work into those 3 buckets. I'll wrap up because I want to give plenty of time for questions. But the other thing to say is that the food project is helping coordinate. It's not a food project thing. It's actually several organizations that are working together on this project called Feedback Nashville, which is an analysis and transformation initiative of the food system. So we're trying to get people, and many people on this call already think this way, so it's preaching to the choir, about thinking about the food system as a whole, right? Hunger and food insecurity is part of that. This is what Melissa was talking about. We're trying to go upstream, right? And think about, food insecurity is actually, in my opinion, caused by poverty, right? And so if we're not talking about poverty, if we're not disrupting poverty, we're going to continue to deal with food insecurity in the present. And of course, that's a big project. It's not going to be solved in a year, in 10 years. But we have to keep chipping away and thinking about these issues from a systemic perspective, the way that transit, right, intersects with food access, right? Turns out that they're very closely related. Affordable housing, economic opportunity, all these things are connected. And if we can get our community as a whole, again, not just us, thinking about these things in a new way, then we think we can move the needle on some of these intractable problems. So I'll stop and would love to take any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, CJ. That was excellent. Appreciate you being concise as well. I know that I'm going to save this question for after Heather, but I've got a question for you specifically after our discussion last week. Heather, turn to you next. You're sort of on, from my perspective, I guess, you're on the front lines there, so to speak, and the clientele that you work with over there at Holy Name for Loaves of Fishes is a little different, I think, than maybe some of the other speakers here today. So would you want to tell us about your program, what you do, why you do it, and what you get out of it, and the good work you do? So.
Thanks so much for that intro, Greg. And thanks for all joining us on the panel this afternoon. Like Greg said, I'm Heather. I am the Hunger Relief Coordinator at Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities as a whole has 25 different programs, but I solely focus on hunger relief, and Loaves and Fishes is one of our many programs that fall under our umbrella. We address food insecurity through Nashville via food pantries and through Loaves and Fishes. So we have 6 food pantries, 3 in Davidson County, and then 3 outside in Middle Tennessee through another program of Catholic Charities. So we're located in Montgomery, Maury, and Coffee counties, as well as the Magruder Center, where the Nashville Food Project has their garden out back. We're also in South Nashville at Casa Azafran. And then we are at the Catholic Pastoral Center, which is the main food pantry where me and my team are located. We also partner with Second Harvest on and with all of these pantries and projects. So we also have senior food boxes, the commodity food supplemental program that we operate out of the Pastoral Center as well to address the senior population. Loaves and Fishes has been around for about 43 years. That is what Greg was referring to. It's a little bit different than the rest of the programs we've been mentioning. It is a day shelter. So the majority of the guests that we do serve are experiencing homelessness, but there are no eligibility requirements. So if any of you walked in tomorrow, you would be served with no questions asked. We provide hot breakfasts and hot lunches 3 days a week. And like I said, it doubles as a day shelter, so you can stay in between breakfast and lunch. And we have a clothing closet. We do hygiene kits. We have snack packs or encampment packs, however you would like to term those, where if you can't find another meal for a little while, or maybe you only come to us for your hot meals, you can take those snack and encampment packs with you so that you have something to gap that time. We also try to give away as many to-go meals as possible. So if we have some leftovers, if we don't need them for something specific, we'll package those up and send those with people. And then a lot of you are from St. Stephen's, so sorry if I am repeating any information you may know, but we also have a Thursday lunch program. We have made that into a hybrid structure where you can go in and have a community meal inside. They've opened up their parish to us, and we work very closely together to make sure that that other part of our town is being met. So they're located in Hermitage. The hybrid structure, like I said, is indoors, but we also provide a drive-through. And so if you don't have time, if you're gathering meals for your whole family, not everybody has to show up. So it's a little bit of an easier structure to provide more meals to more family members that way. We are trying to break as many of those barriers that we know all exist within Nashville. And so that's one of the easiest ways. So if you pull up in your car and you say you have 7 family members, or maybe you have a neighbor in need, you're allowed to get as many of those meals to bring back for whatever you need them for, whatever meal you're going to help bridge that gap with. Some of our daily challenges that we see at Loaves and Fishes will be mental and physical health and substance abuse, lots of transportation barriers, working and job barriers. And so we try very hard to address those challenges by providing additional resources. Since Loaves and Fishes is a brick and mortar, we are able to bring in other organizations to try to provide for those other needs. We can start with feeding the mind so that we can address those other existing needs. And so some of the people that we do work with are neighborhood health. So that is a street medicine team we have partnered with so that they can come in and provide medical care to our guests. So if you are experiencing homelessness, don't have insurance, all of the barriers that we know of, they will still treat you. So you can actually go weekly and pick up your prescriptions via them. They are very, very amazing and work with us on a lot of different levels. We also work with multiple housing coordinators. So Park Center, Open Table, Nashville Street Project, and then some other assorted members will come as needed. And then also once a week to see if there's anybody new who they need to be adding to their list. So they will do minor case management as well as work side by side with their guests to try to navigate finding safe and stable housing for people in need. And like everyone has mentioned, the nutritious food is always a challenge that I think Nashville as a whole is working really hard to address. So I'm happy that we are all on that same page. We always provide fresh fruit and fresh vegetables as much as possible. The fruit we will put on we call it a free table, so people can take as much as they want. So we try to do things that they can carry with them. So clementines, apples, oranges, things that will sustain as they walk out of the building. And then that way they can at least have that small amount of nutrition with them if they can't find another meal as soon as we would hope. We work with Second Harvest St. Andrew's Society. It's a gleaning society. So they'll go and glean farms to try to bring us all of the produce that maybe somebody can't sell. And then we recently also have partnered with By Faith Farms, and their whole mission is to grow food to then turn around and give to organizations to give directly to clients and guests in need. We just had received, I think, 3 trash bags full of turnips with the greens still on. And so all of our volunteers, which a few of you have been there for some of these moments, will sit there and pick all the greens off, save all those for 1 or 2 meals, then use the turnips and cook those for meals. We try to get as much from Second Harvest USDA's program, again, to kind of get away from the canned meals, the frozen meals. And because if they're directly there, we know that they're going to eat it right in front of us, take it back and eat it somewhere else. And I'm a little bit of a health nut. And so I do focus on that as much as I can. We know that not every day it is possible, but again, we try our hardest. I think a way that communities of faith and Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light can continually help everybody on this call is just by the involvement. Ask questions, ask what the current need is, as the need always does change based on season, based on the population we're facing, based on maybe some new people who are coming to organizations who may have not been present prior. And just, again, that regular involvement, regular open communication. And I'm sure Greg will share all of our contacts. So if any of you ever have any questions or need anything from us as well. And thank you for all of what everyone else does as well.
Thank you, Heather. Could you just tell how many meals do y'all serve a week or a month? Do you have that information on how many people you feed, especially amongst the homeless folks? And
yeah, on average, I say 100 guests per meal.
Right.
That fluctuates based on the time of the month. So it can be upwards of 170 or maybe 90. So I just stick with 100 as just an easy round number for everybody. So it's about 700 a week, and probably 3,000 a month And that's just the guest count. If we give them extra meals and snack packs, we don't even include those numbers because I don't know if we could keep track at some point.
Gotcha. So, yeah, thank you. So thanks to all of our panelists. That was really a great summation. A lot of things going on there. There's a lot of needs also I'm expecting. I expect it. And one of the things I read just like the last day or two is something like 30% of Tennessee college students are experience food insecurity. And that just sort of flabbergasted me, in college students not being able to get adequate food. So it's an issue for everybody, all across the board there. I'm going to open it up to questions from folks. You can probably we've got there's a little reaction button down there at the bottom. If you want to use it, you can raise your hand and we can call on you. Or there's probably a few of us here. You can just unmute yourself and ask a question, and I think we would be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and jump in. And if you don't have any questions, not some or something. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this has been great. And by the way, Kim, I helped build the very first wall for the very first Second Harvest Food Bank at Carter Lawrence School back in like 1980, something like that.
That's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that foundation.
This maybe goes more towards Joey and CJ in terms of growing and kind of connected to our work with climate change and care for the earth. Joey, you mentioned local in terms of reducing carbon footprint, but just wonder, do y'all do kind of regenerative agricultural stuff and try to do earth-friendly stuff as much as possible? And just wondered if you could maybe address that a little bit, because that ties into our work a lot.
Yes, we do that. We do. We work with UT Extension to do a lot of composting of all materials from greenhouses, from the fields. We've got a compost pile that's bigger than your house, I would assume. I don't know how big your house is, but it's going to be fairly. We move that around with a skid steer. We keep it moving, and we use that back on the fields at the spring of the year. We also do a lot of cover cropping through the winter with the turnips and legumes and stuff like that to regenerate the soil. We are right by the soil testing facility, so we're constantly testing our soils for the right nutrients that we need. We know what we need, and our plot plan for our farms generally rotates things accordingly to what the soil tells us that the plants can give, to based on the need of what seed cultivar or what variety of plant we're planting. And then a lot of times those turnips do end up because it has a double value, right? It's replenishing the soil, but it also is food. So we invite we realized a few years ago that the Curtis community really like turnips. And so we invited them to our farm, and they glean 8,000 pounds a month in December, January, and February each month. So that's sort of how we balance the ecosystem and try to keep everything in balance. We also give rest to fields. The rest is done because if we rested everything at once, so we grew as an organization into identifying fields that were of longest use, resting them and cover cropping them for a whole year to replenish the nutrients in the soil.
Great. Sounds wonderful. Excellent.
We're still learning, Paul, but that's a good question. But yeah, we're still learning how to do that most appropriately and provide for the hunger and our food goals. So.
And I'll just say, yes, in short, yes, we're practicing regenerative agricultural practices. We provide workshops for all of our gardeners and farmers on these practices. We're also developing a project with the city right now, a pilot project to turn back tax property into gardens and community orchards. And a lot of this, it might sound exciting. It is exciting, but a lot of these properties are really weird. And so, and like not suitable for gardens. And we're like thinking about food forests, pollinator gardens, community orchards, So there's a lot of different ways to, mitigating the heat island effect, native birds. And I mean, so we're thinking beyond just the tomatoes, so to speak, and thinking about how we can beautify and make our city and urban environments more resilient to some of the climate pressures we're feeling.
You mind
Thank you, Greg.
do you mind if I just jump in on waste reduction from our perspective as well? And then I'm probably going to have to go. But so this year, so far, this fiscal year to date, July 1 through April, to now in April, we've distributed nearly 37 million pounds of food. Of that, we have 2% waste. And you can imagine a lot of that food that we're getting, I mean, we're at the top of the pyramid, right? If you've made it, can't get rid of it, feed people with it, right? So we're getting food that often is at the end of its life. So to only have a 2% waste, it's pretty good. And with that, we are working with local goat and pig farmers to come and pick up our waste. We are starting a pilot next week, starting Monday, actually. Compost companies dropping off bins now to recycle our frozen product for them, because that's a major item going to the landfill from here is frozen meat, frozen pizza, frozen torn packages that we've sorted through. It's a substantial amount of food. We recycle. We also have started a farm we have a distribution center in Camden, in addition to the one here in Nashville. That sits on 27 acres of land, and we've started a farm out there. So, and we're going to compost. We have raised beds. We have road garden, and we are not a farmer. I always get the word. We're augmenting the soil right now so that we can farm that in a large way and practice regenerative farming. So I just want to throw that out before I leave.
Thank you, Kim.
And Hannah had put some questions in chat. Do you want to ask those to Hannah, or do you want I can read them for you?
I read them.
Okay.
So I was just asking, how do we stay in the loop on all these organizations? How do we personally get involved? And then how do we get our houses of worship involved?
I'll just start. We've got volunteer opportunities 6 days a week. There is a waiting list to volunteer both in the gardens and in the kitchens. There are more opportunities in the kitchens, but the gardens are better for larger groups. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I can put you in contact with the right people and get your group or yourself plugged into the right way.
I would say that from my standpoint, I would stick to the message. If you've got underutilized land that you're paying to have mowed by a company, maybe rethink the utilization of it and turn it into food growing areas for not just Cultivate, but Nashville Food Project and all these other organizations that are out there, trying to find access for people that want to scale up maybe a small garden and move to a half acre or an acre. It seems like, there's a really cool thing that they're doing over there. And I think that could change the game for getting some of these immigrants into some food production that not only feeds their families, but gives them an income pathway to breaking that poverty cycle. So, and you can go to www.cultivate, spelled with a 2. I don't have the hat on, but spelled with CUL2 VATE.org. You can find opportunities to volunteer. You can find other places and things that we're doing, farmers markets. We have a retail store and all that stuff. So you can find out a little bit more about that online. Thank you.
And the branch has plenty of volunteer opportunities as well. So you can go online. I posted that link there. Or you can message me directly, and also we will work to try to cultivate an opportunity for your group if you want something that is different than like we can have groups come and prepare emergency food boxes. It's different things that we can do that give you an experience that you may not see online.
Yeah, will all of this information be sent out after? Greg, could you maybe work something out to send out this information?
Absolutely. We're going to we've got this recording, so we'll send out the recording, and then I will also send out a contact information for all of the organizations, and so that you can get
Cool.
contact them directly. So
Yeah, I also have one other question, and I mean, I don't even know quite like what words to use to ask this, but so some of you talked about the system, you know, and the systems are broken. We know that the way our country works is why homelessness exists. It's why foster kids need foster homes. It's why the food production is broken, and why we're transporting peppers from, you know, South America up here instead of getting them from our neighbor. So I love all the work that you guys are doing to help those in need right now. But if you would, could you speak to how you're working to change the systems and how we can help with that? It's a big question. I'm sorry.
this actually is, that's a good question, Hannah. I sort of asked, I think Joey and I talked to CJ last week a little bit about this. You know, are there policies that Typical could help advocate for that would be helpful in fixing the system or improving the system? Whether those are local, state, or federal policies, you guys have any ideas about what you'd like to see? And I know, Joey, you said something to me that kind of surprised me about, you know, your one answer to that. So why don't you share that, if you will, please?
Sure. I think the advocacy part of it is minimizing legislation on food. So one of the things that really made it hard for people to generate income was when the federal government decided that you had to have a food safety coordinator on your staff if you were going to. That the income threshold for that used to be you had to have an income of $250,000 a year. So most small farmers in rural Tennessee or around in the local food game weren't making $250,000 a year, so they were exempt. But recently, that law went to $25,000 a year. So if you were a $25,000 a year income earner, you had to then pay for a qualified food safety person to be on your team to certify your food safe before you could sell it at a farmer's market or food store or whatever. And so I think those are the laws that we're now trying to realize you cannot build food security if you're going to put legislation on a farmer that doesn't make any money. The 2% is the margin of you know, for farmers, and we've got to advocate for people to be able to sell their product and to get it to market at the lowest possible cost. And we've got to promote look, the food value system is awful. I mean, to pay a farmer at the food where they get paid for their food, we're not paying enough money to get food to get them a living wage that they can. So we've got to go back to, which I do quite regularly with Marriott and Cisco and these companies, and say the farmers are dying on the vine because the middlemen and the end men are getting all the money off the produce. So if we got to equalize some of the monetary systems of transfer within getting a tomato from the field to a plate at Opry Mills. And if we can go back, I know that's a big thing to do, but to educate people is probably, I'm not a big, I'm not a speaker about education, but the more that I'm in this, the more I believe that educating people about what the food system looks like, the fragility of it, why we ship 90% of our lettuce 3,000 miles makes no sense to me. But because we grow thousands of heads of lettuce right now at Cultivate. So it's just about awareness, I think. And I tell people, you know, I have a lot of opportunities to talk about food security, but my wife still goes to Publix and buys food because it's easier for her to get and plan her meals, right? And so there's still a breakdown within my own home of how important it is, to your point, Hannah, that we get to a place where there's greater awareness within our faith community about the issue, about where food insecurity can take us, and the opportunity that provides for us to build community around food. Right? That's what I speak about. So that's, you know, there's varied levels of transition for that. And I don't think, you know, I speak for myself. As I told Paul, I'm still in the learning curve of things change so fast. And the younger generations have so much more access to technology, or the ability to connect the dots between that food wastage and how it's moved around. But we're learning. So hope to continue to provide a platform for those younger generations to come behind and make better for us. But
thanks, Joey. Any Melissa, CJ, or Heather, any thoughts about that question? So,
a really quick answer to a very overbearing question, because I know that there's a billion answers to this. But the Farm Bill was a big policymaker this past year. So you can just research that and look up ways as to how to try to help fight that. I got the opportunity to go with CCUSA to Washington, D.C. and meet with our policymakers to try to lobby against those changes, which was a wonderful opportunity, and I got to learn a lot from it. And they are trying to change the amount that you can be able to still apply for food stamps and electronic benefits, so EBT. I don't want to talk too long on it, but if you just look into that, that is one way that, you know, us on a lower level of policy can help address that. And then I know that I spoke with somebody from Second Harvest. I wish Kim was still on here. Nancy, the president of Second Harvest, and they're going to try to incorporate more information on policy and advocacy in their monthly newsletter, so that we can all be more involved on things that we may just not see or hear about on a daily basis. So you could sign up for their newsletter and maybe find out some more tangible things that we can do on those levels.
okay, that's great. Thank you.
And then I'll speak in a limited way as to in a different space regarding this issue, not specifically food systems, but the issues of poverty. And there is a huge need for education. Of course, the burden of that is on all of us. We do as much as we can at the branch of Nashville, everybody in their system, wherever you are. However, you can educate people as to who the homeless truly are, who the immigrant truly is, the reality of the situations that these people live in, and how poverty affects them, and the barriers that they experience that keep them from being able to get to the places that allow them to thrive and get out of a food line. I think that's probably what we all want. In the meantime, while we want that, we need Joey, and we need Second Harvest, and we need Heather, and we need all of us doing the things that we're doing, and we'll continue to need that. But we've got to also be thinking about and working in that space where we're educating the person who is not engaged or outside their bubble to know what people in poverty are experiencing and how to get them from that point to where they want to be for their families.
Thank you, Melissa. CJ, last words. You shared with me a prayer that you say, I think every day last week. You mind sharing that with the group, and also if you have any thoughts about this question that we've just been talking about as well. So.
Well, in terms of policy, I mean, there's a lot to say about the policy. You know, having, you know, Chattanooga and particularly Knoxville are ahead of us in this way. They have an organized group called a Food Policy Council. So they have a group that I think it's under the United Way in Knoxville. And so we don't even have a clearinghouse for Middle Tennessee policy thinking around food. And that has seemed to me a necessary step to just organize our efforts around this. Tennessee Justice Center does a lot of our advocacy around the SNAP and WIC and the federal programs, but we don't have anyone working at a state level, for example, on ag issues. And there's a lot of stuff that we could, and I think the Tennessee Department of Ag is really open to a lot of ideas and conversations, but we just don't have an organized way to move the conversation forward. There is a group that's trying to organize a state coalition around nutrition security, but that sort of leaves all the agricultural stuff out until we begin to really think holistically. So there's a lot to say. I would say check out our conversation series that we're hosting over the next couple of months in coordination with Feedback Nashville. You know, come see us on one of those for one of those conversations. You've put me on the spot. I don't want to get the words wrong. But do you have it? Did you take a picture of it?
Yes, I do.
I just don't, it's Toulouse, so I don't want to get her words wrong.
Yeah, let's second here. So here's the
I got it. Yeah, I found it.
Go for it.
It's oh God, to those who have hunger, give bread, and to us who have bread, give the hunger for justice. Amen.
Amen. Thank y'all so much. This has been an excellent conversation, webinar. Thank you for your time. I know you all have busy schedules, things like that, but really important conversation. And we're gonna send out the recording to Temple folks and all of you all who have joined the webinar. Let's keep the message going, keep it spreading out there. So thanks so much again, and
thanks.
Have a wonderful spring. Thank you.
Thank you.